So this is the eloProg Safety Designer. What has to be done first, and which is very important, is to choose the desired language, because unfortunately this can't be done later, so you have to do this first. Here we choose English, of course, and then we can start here with a new project. We've been asked for our company user name and also the name of the project, and what I'm always doing is to give a version number. And after confirming this window, we have opened the configuration window. You can see the base module, which is always required, is already present here. And all we have to do now is to choose the firmware version we actually have on our module. You can find it at the side of the module, it's written there. And the latest version is 3.1, so you can just keep this version. And maybe as you can see here, we don't only have the base module, we also have an extension module. And so we have to choose the same one here in our configuration. I've here a mixed input-output module. It's the 08A02, which means I have 8 inputs and 2 OSSD pairs as an output. And by the way, you can have up to 4 modules of the same type. So if you try to do more, you will get here an error message. So it's not possible to add more than 4. And which is very important, um, you have also to choose an additional information for the CPU, for the base module, the nodes, because they have all the same address, which are addressed by the rear side bus. And to address them separately, we need that as an additional information, the node number. We start with node number 0 up to node 3. That's 4 nodes. And you have to choose this here in the software configuration and also to wire it here at the terminals. At terminal 2 and terminal 3, you have to wire 0 or 24 volt DC, depending on the node number. And you can look into the manual for the details, which potential, which voltage has to be applied here at the terminal clamps. Okay, but in my configuration, I have just one module, so I cancel those one on out and just keep this one. So we have more information here or more options to choose. Updating from EPS disabled. This means the EPS, that's the memory stick. If you have a memory stick here uh, placed in at the bottom of the base module, you can boot from this memory stick, and that's depending on the configuration which is on the stick. Um, you can have this configuration into the base module um, on the boot up procedure. And if you don't like to do this, you can disable this. Yeah, if I choose this option, if I tick the box here, updating from EPS is disabled now. And here I can choose the number of the transfer modules, the EPT 1 and 2. That's for remote context. You can have modules which are not placed directly beneath the CPU. Imagine you have a very large machine, or you have a cabinet housing in the distance of 100 meters or so. You can um, route the rear side bus onto a cable with this EPT modules and have it somewhere else in your environment. But this has no impact on here on the configuration. It's just a note for you to remind you that you have some transfer modules in your configuration. So after closing this window, you can see immediately here you have the visual configuration, and if you keep the mouse over one of the modules, you have an additional information. And on the left side, you have the configuration window as a text information lattice. And you also have here options to choose the operators and the items in and outputs. And so let's start just with configuration. You can choose here an input. Let's say we have an e-stop here. Just pick and place it here. And you see this frame. If you click on this block, this block is activated. You see it with the frame. And on the right side, you have the capabilities of this block. What can you have as an option to choose? You can have just a single, normally closed contact. Mostly we have e-stops with two contacts, so I choose double NC. And now we have to assign the terminals we have to assign this input to a terminal, a physical terminal on our module. I activate this yellow frame, and on the right side we have the option to assign this input to an input of the base module. So you see here in brackets EPB, that's the base module, but you can also have an input at an extension module, um, actually on each module which provides inputs. So we choose input 1, and as you can see, input 2 is automatically also assigned. You cannot choose two numbers which are not following in each other. They are also always have to be the next number. If you have here input 1, this has to be input 2, or if this is input 2, this has to be input 3. That's very important, but the the system will do it automatically. So what else can we do? We can have here more options, and which is very important to have test um, outputs. If you have a system with dry contacts or potentially free contacts, and you have two of them, it's very important to choose this test signals, these test outputs, what they are doing. They are time shifted, and they are testing if the test pulse which is applied at here at pin 13 returns at pin 17. So you pick up your test pulse, that's the voltage supply for this contact at pin 13, the supply voltage, in combination with the test pulse. You pick it here up at pin 13 and route it over the first contact and bring it back here on pin 17. And also the same here at pin 15, route it over the second contact and bring it back to pin 18. If you confuse these two contacts, the let's say you take up here pin on pin 15 and bring it back to pin 17, you will get an error message. This is very important for the diagnostic coverage, which has an impact on your achievable performance level. So please don't forget to use the test pulses. It increases the safety or at least the diagnostic coverage in your system. So, and if you have an e-stop button, it's also required to have a manual reset. You can have it here ticking the box, and then you have a second, an additional input, which you can assign also here and have here a start a reset push button wired to make the manual reset. Manual reset for e-stops is very important because if you pull that red button after pushing it, um, it's very important not to get the machine started automatically. That can lead to a hazardous situation, and so it's very important to have a manual reset. So, but I don't like to have it here at the input, so I cancel this option. What else do we have? um, startup test. That means if you want to activate this in your system, you have uh, to push and to release this knob, this this uh, this block once to get this function block activated. That's can be used for, let's say, for doors or flaps to check the sensors, or here the e-stop, if the contacts are working correctly, if everything is in order. So, and we have a filter. The filter is very important for such mechanical devices which can bounce. This is a filter to reduce the bouncing, or in that time you choose here, the bouncing is ignored, and so um, you can always have a small amount of filter time which reduces the bouncing. We have another option which is also very important, simultaneity. Simultaneity means the time you choose here. Let's say we choose 2 seconds. Both contacts have to change their state within these 2 seconds. So if you push the button, contact 1 and contact 2 have to change their state within these 2 seconds. If they don't do so, you will get an error message. This is also very important for diagnostic, and so I can always recommend to choose this option. And if you like, you can have an additional output for error messaging, but please be careful because each output you activate has to be um, assigned somewhere in your configuration. If this output is not assigned or wired here, you will get also an error message. So, um, also, which I also recommend is to have here a comment or a title. So if you place the title here, you have information about your project. When you like to make a printout, you have the information on your sheet, and you don't have to make notes, you have it directly on your sheet. So, okay, we have now an input, but what we also need is an output. Uh, And we choose that OSSD outputs. These are semiconductor, safe semiconductor outputs. Output signal switching device is uh, the abbreviation for OSSD. And the same thing we have to do here is to assign these output to somewhere at your module. And you have here an additional input, feedback restart. This has two functions, this input. Feedback is for monitoring external devices, that EDM function, external device monitoring. And let's say you have a contactor or two contactors or relays or valves, and they can stick. And if they stick in the operated state, that means you have the welded contacts maybe. It's very important to identify these state, and so it's very important to choose and to wire this input. You can route a 24-volt signal over a normally closed contact of your contactors or valves and bring it here into pin 7. And if you connect input to output, this output would start immediately if here are 24 volts applied. And if a contactor is sticking, it always sticks in the operated mode. So this input can't be applied with 24 volts and this output wouldn't start. That's the feedback function. And you also have the restart function. The restart function is for the manual reset. If I click here on this output block, you can have an automatic reset. That's when you're not ticking the box, when you leave it as it is. And if you tick the box, you can see here, I can maybe a little bit larger. You can see here an arrow which is going upwards. That means the the positive edge, the rising edge is being monitored for a push button. That means if you attach here a push button, if you wire here a push button, the outputs will start on pushing the button. And if you have here the monitored function, it's for pushing and releasing the push button. Then the output will start here. Okay, we have also options, enable status, that's an additional signal output, and we have other possibilities for monitoring. That's also described in the manual, so please, if you're like to have further information, I can recommend the manual. So, okay, and now you know two possibilities to install a manual reset. You can have it directly at the input block, you have it on the output block, and to have it a little bit more comfortable or more possibilities within your configuration, you have a third option. We have here um, other memory or operators. Um, and you can see here the restart manual block, the operator. You can see here um, you have to put it in between the in and the output. And the output of this function block of this operator will start if it also detects on this input a rising edge. So you can see it's similar to this block when you put here the manual reset. But what we can do here is have a separate input. We take here an input block, let's say a switch, which is a non-safe input, and attach it here. And also we have to choose it or to assign it to an input. And so you have a possibility to have the manual reset with an external switch. And if you have this, if more than one output, you can have more than you can have it with one um, restart switch. So it's a little bit more flexible. Okay, so what we could do now is to connect to the base model and to load it into the base model, but therefore I have prepared another configuration to show you a little bit more. And I will load it now. Just a second. So, okay. If it's too small to see it for you, can have here directly um, a zoom to make it a little bit larger. Now, I think you can see it better now. Okay, so what I've did here is to have more than one block. We have the e-stop, we have the restart button, we have an e-gate, which could be a door or flap, um, a safety door, an e-gate with dry contacts, with potentially free contacts. That could be um, a safety sensor from eloProg with read contacts, which are also potentially free. But this could be also a level switch, a limit switch with which is a safety switch. That doesn't matter. Maybe you can see here I disabled the test pulses. This is just because for make it easier here the wiring to me for just for presentation. But if you have it in your machine, the configuration, please always choose the test pulses. Then we have a function block solid state device. This is for attaching or having um, light grids, safety light curtains, or safety laser scanners. Could also be an RFID safety sensor like eloProtect E from eloProg. Those safety sensors have also Ossd outputs, which are monitoring themselves. Therefore, it's not necessary to have an additional monitoring at the inputs, like here with the test pulses. And you can see here at the capabilities, we don't even have the choice to activate test pulses. And this is an enable input, could be for a key um, input to make a bypass function, but be careful with such functions because they can lead to a hazardous situation. And so this is always depending on your risk assessment. And this is just for demonstration. Okay, so now we are connecting to our base module, and we've been asked for the password. The password is always the same. It's safe pass in big letters. You can see it in the manual as well. And if we are connected, we can send a configuration into the base module. And we are being asked if we are sure to do this. Of course, we are so. And then the upload process will start immediately. You can see here I have a little bit more. This is also another block clocking um, onto a status output. This is very nice to illustrate, to show the worker the state of the eStop button. You can see it in a few seconds how it will work after the upload process has been finished, and this window will close. Okay, successfully. That's very nice. Now we can start the graphical monitor function, clicking here. Once again, being asked for the password, but we just put it in here, so we can click on OK. And then you can see we have green and red wires here. That means green, we have this block is activated due to 24 volts at the inputs, and red means there is no signal. And as you can see here, and you can see it here at the other window, this LED is flashing. That means the e-stop is prepared, uh, but the reset hasn't been um, activated to restart. So the push button hasn't been pushed yet. This is very nice to see for the worker that he can be that the output can be activated by pushing, and I will do so. And you can see, um, sorry, this was not long enough. Ah, no, my mistake. You can see we have another block here. We have an AND function. Of course, I have to activate this block as well. So, and now the outputs here are switched through. So, and you see here, um, if you are activating and deactivating, that means operating the door and then open and closing the door, the outputs will start automatically. But that's different if you are activating the e-stop. You have to push the button once again. So we have to restart only in this path, and in this path it will start automatically. This is very common. You find this very often. Okay, this is one possibility to have an information about your system. I will show you a second one. Therefore, I have to stop this information, this monitoring function, and I can even have a restart, a reset of the base module and disconnecting to the module. And what I can show you now is the simulation function. Here we have the schematic simulation. That's this green button here. If you click on it, you can simulate your system, even if you are not connected um, to your module. I can even switch it off here. So, and you can simulate it if you're in your bureau or somewhere else on a plane, on the train. It's just required to have the eloProg Safety Designer open and have a configuration which is valid, and then you can start. Um, okay, and you have here red here squares, and if you push on it, you can see um, you can activate or deactivate them, and you have also for the blocks which are related to time functions, to time-based function, you have to start the time base here, the simulation play, and now they are activated. And if you pushing the button, you can simulate your system and see if it works as expected or if you have some mistakes within here, and everything will work now as you can see here. Okay, so this is, I think, the most important things which has to be known about the first steps of the eloProg safety design. There are much more informations in the manual, so please look there. And now we can start with the questions.